Traditional leaders want to be included in President Jacob Zuma's cabinet. Analysts say it's a bad idea because many of them do not respect the Bill of Rights. Now, just a quick reminder, I do need to note this as well. We did invite the Congress of Traditional Leaders, Contresa, if you will, to take part in this discussion. Unfortunately, they were unable to make it this morning. Nonetheless, though, let's speak to legal expert, Professor Pierre de Vos, who joins me from our Cape Town studios. Professor, good morning to you. Always a pleasure in talking to you. They do not respect the Bill of Rights, and analysts saying it's a bad idea. Which side of the fence do you fall on?
Well, the traditional leaders are symbolically recognized by the Constitution, but it's made clear that that is subject to the rest of the Constitution, including the Bill of Rights. So, and also, of course, the requirements of democracy. So, I don't think that traditional leaders should be given a specific role in the executive. Specifically so because I think traditional leaders are somewhat tainted, given the fact that so many of them were involved in enforcing and applying the past laws, apartheid laws during the apartheid era. They got money for that by giving the necessary stamp of approval for somebody who wanted to go to the city and apply for a pass there. So I would be very unhappy or awkward if traditional leaders were given special treatment in this way. That doesn't mean that if they stood as members of a political party, like part of the ANC, that the president couldn't appoint them, but not because they're traditional leaders, but because they happen to be members of the majority party in parliament.
Professor, we will pick up on perhaps the awkwardness, if we could, when I come back after this. I did mention that we did invite Contresa to this, unable to make the interview. Professor, sit tight for me if you can, but this short insert is when we spoke to Pategele Kgolamisa, the president of the Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa, some time ago about this topic.
The understanding is that if there's a ritual that has been missed out on, and the person behaves in a manner that is understood to be somewhat odd, and then the traditional healer identifies that, then the belief is that the person will behave now once that ritual has been performed in a normal manner.
A normal manner, Professor. How then would the Constitution view a comment like that?
Well, I'm not sure what he was referring to, but it seems to me if he is referring to people who do not adhere to exactly the same value system as he himself does, then it's of course problematic, because our Constitution says, yes, you have a right to your culture, you have a right to your own belief system, but that is always subject to the Constitution, and the Constitutional Court has on many occasions already declared unconstitutional, say, parts of the customary law that infringed on the right to gender equality. And so if there are other practices that discriminate against people on the basis of sexual orientation and so forth, then those practices are really not, you can't really square that with what is acceptable in democracy, in which everybody's rights are to be respected.
Professor, let me pick up on that. You're referring to Section 9 of the Constitution. It prohibits discrimination on any ground, including basis of race, sex, gender, and sexual orientation. How does the Constitution protect those who might have a differing view? Does it protect a differing view in any way?
Well, you see, what the Constitution doesn't do, it doesn't protect anybody from being prejudiced, and it doesn't allow anybody to discriminate against anyone else. So if you have specific views that are prejudiced, that are based on race or sex or gender or sexual orientation, you are not protected, your views are not protected in that way. What is protected is that you are allowed your own personal opinion, of course, and in the privacy of your own home, you are allowed to have all these terrible views about various things, and nobody can do anything about it. But if you're going to act on it, and if you're going to discriminate against anyone, then you are not protected, no matter whether that view is based on racial prejudice, gender prejudice, or sexual orientation prejudice.
Professor, if my memory serves me correct, and I do know you will correct me if I'm wrong, as you often have in the past by those who about this, it was rejected by the drafters, I think is the right term, for the 1996 Constitution. A very similar request was put forward back in 1996. That was rejected, if I remember correctly. Why would it be different now?
Well, you see, in 1996, you are absolutely correct. Right, there was a big discussion and debate about whether cultural rights and traditional rights should trump certain rights in the Constitution or not. But because progressive forces, and especially the women's lobby, were very strongly against traditional rules and custom trumping the Constitution, the traditional leaders actually lost that fight. And it was said that, yes, we will respect your customs and so on, in as much as it doesn't discriminate against anyone. So that argument, it seems to me, has already been won by those people who are in favor of equality and against discrimination. So I can't see why it needs to be revived again now. Of course, there might be reasons in terms of the politics have changed. Maybe the governing party has gone a little bit more to the right in terms of the attitude towards social issues, given the leadership of the ANC at the moment. But the Constitution cannot just be changed because of that, I would say. So it will be difficult to see how that can actually be accommodated at this point, given that we have already had that argument and that the traditional leadership side of this argument had lost the argument.
All right, it seems our memory isn't fading me just yet. Pierre de Vos, Professor Pierre de Vos, my thanks to you as always, constitutional law expert joining us from Cape Town. A big thanks to him. A quick reminder as well, on reaction to that and right of reply, as we always do, we will be speaking to Contralesa, the Council for Traditional Leaders, later in the week. We did invite them to this interview, but they were unable to make